Good afternoon and welcome to Coast Legal Aid Fridays with Friends. I'm Geraldine DiBianchi, the staff attorney and mobile justice squad attorney in the senior law unit. Today joining me is our friend and community partner, Mark Dogie. He is the president and CEO of Kids in Distress in Fort Lauderdale, otherwise known as KID. Welcome, Mark.
Hi, Geraldine. Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. Mark does fantastic work with his team in the community. Why don't you tell us a little bit about KID's mission, Mark?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for this opportunity, as Legal Aid has been a significant partner of KID through our kinship program, as well as many other initiatives for many years. Our mission at Kids in Distress is to prevent child abuse, preserve the family, and provide services and interventions to children who are impacted by abuse and neglect. I believe what sets us apart as a nonprofit and human services organization is our continuum of care. We offer services from maternal health, our Healthy Families and Healthy Start program, which intervene with families prenatally and at birth to help those moms out, all the way through foster care and adoption. We're one of the largest foster licensing agencies in Broward and Palm Beach counties, with about 160 foster homes throughout the community. In addition, we provide a ton of community-based support to families in our community, from kinship services to family support, parenting, family counseling center, and then we actually have a very significant presence in the early childhood education realm with 2 preschools, one in Miami-Dade and one in Broward County, as well as a plethora of different programs that provide technical assistance to preschools and early childhood education centers throughout South Florida.
Wow, you really do such an array of things for families and for the kids. So that's amazing. Can you tell us how your facility was affected and your services were affected by the pandemic?
Absolutely. It's very hard to believe that we're 18, 19 months into the pandemic. But a couple of things that we did right out of the gate, and it's truly a reflection of our very tenured staff. Our leadership team has been with KID for over 15 years. I've been with the organization for 28 years, and that really provides the resources as well as the wisdom, I believe, to implement programs and initiatives rather quickly. As soon as the pandemic hit, one of the things that we did very, very fast is, like many other organizations, move to a virtual visitation guideline or virtual visitation intervention, where most of our community-based programs use either a Zoom platform or FaceTime to intervene with our families. We also brought our training for our foster care program online immediately, and we were the first agency in the state of Florida to do that. But in addition, one of the things that we found right away at the beginning of the pandemic is that basic needs were such an issue with all of the families that we work with. We do a lot of counseling work, a lot of family intervention work, but the reality is that families who do not have their basic needs met, like food insecurity, housing, health services, those kind of things, they're never going to benefit from therapy. So what we did real early on is that we launched our food distribution program in partnership with Feeding South Florida and Flippity. And we actually had over 600 families that took advantage of our food distribution every single Monday that we ended up putting on for about a year and a half. And then we engaged partners like Legal Aid, Healthy Start, and the diaper bank down in Miami to add value-added elements to our food distribution, where we began giving legal advice through your team, diapers through the Miami Diaper Bank, backpacks through some of our partnerships, and it really became just a basic needs distribution for families who had critical needs in our community.
Well, that's kind of how we met, Mark. You had this food distribution and we teamed together. You were there every Monday. We tried to be there the first Monday of every month to watch your team effortlessly, okay, maybe not so effortlessly, lifting these heavy boxes into cars, but you did it with such, dignity in reference and reverence to these people who were in line, just their basic needs being met. I was in awe of the work that you and your team did. Tell me how, though, you went from your mission, taking care of the children and their families, to all of a sudden, let's switch to food distribution. That's not something that most people even think of. So you really filled a need, a basic need, at a time where most people didn't know where to look.
Well, again, and thank you for the compliment. I think it really was born out of the fact that we felt crippled in a lot of ways because our services are really geared towards meeting face-to-face with families and providing services in their homes. So when we were faced with families who had such significant needs, we really kind of got all of our brain work together of all of our leaders, and we said, how can we make a difference? How can we make a meaningful impact in the lives of these families with what we have? And one of the things we pride ourselves in Kids in Distress and Family Central is collaboration. We have probably 30 or 40 nonprofit partners who are very significant partners that we can call on in a minute's notice. I gave Paco a call down at Feeding South Florida and Lynn a call over at Flippity. And within a matter of days, they had trucks in our parking lot dropping loads of food to be able to distribute. And then we engaged the business community. We engaged Forever Young Anti-Aging, Norwegian Cruise Lines, and several others of our partners. And they provided the heavy lifting load to come out every single week to be able to help us get that food into cars. And one of the things that was pinnacle is that I said we provided food and services to about 600 families. About 300 came to Kid in a car line and referred to the organization. But we actually had another car line made up of all of our social workers who loaded their own cars and dropped off door to door food and diapers and supplies. As a matter of fact, we had one van that was filled to the gills every single week with food. And that van drove down to the Golden Glades in Miami. And then just like an army of ants, our social workers would meet in the parking lot at the Golden Glades, fill their cars up, and then distribute that food throughout the needy families in Miami-Dade County.
Yeah, I would watch them. They loaded up those cars to the hilt. There was no space left. No, I was in awe of what they would do. It was amazing. And that your partners, was it Feeding South Florida and Flippity, they just jumped right on board right away?
Immediately, there was an immediate response. I mean, I gave Paco a call and I said, can we make this happen? And I believe that within 5 days, there was an 18-wheeler in our parking lot, dropping on average, 25, 30,000 pounds of food every single week.
Wow. So when did the food distribution end? Was it the end of August or was it July was the last?
It ended in late August. We decided to end the food distribution the Monday before school started. Primarily, we're not only providing food to families, but also providing 7-day lunch and breakfast boxes through our partnership with Flippity. And we know that once children began to go back to school in person, that some of that food insecurity needs would be met. So we ran the program for just about 18 months.
Wow, that's a good long time. So is there something now, you have like a food pantry, or you're doing something else to provide the needs of those that, are still facing food insecurity in the area?
Yeah, great question. We absolutely do. Probably at a more significant rate than we ever had. I mean, we do have flex funds that are provided to us through the Children's Services Council, primarily for our family preservation programs, that we can utilize for basic needs for families. But one of the things that we've continued is that we have a very generous grant from an entity called No Kid Hungry. And that grant allows us to provide a supplement of food that we get from Feeding South Florida, shelf-stable type of food. And we get fresh vegetable boxes still delivered. As a matter of fact, this past Tuesday, we had a truckload of 500 fresh vegetable boxes that were dropped in our parking lot that we have continued with the families that we work with internally. So we have our social workers that go ahead and pick that food up. And through that partnership with Feeding South Florida, we're still able to meet those basic food insecurity needs.
Oh, that's fantastic. Because, you never want to just say, we have nothing now. We went from 18 months. So you guys really know how to fill the needs of those that are there. Are you guys up and running? Are you back up and running full service? How's that going?
Again, great question, is that we never closed, through the pandemic. Matter of fact, most of our critical team, I was into the office every single day, along with about 30 others. But again, we moved to a virtual platform. So we're open on a limited basis. When everything closed back in 2020 in April, we reopened our preschools in June of that year, as well as our aftercare program. And we are actually meeting with families face-to-face on a limited basis through our phase 2 protocol. So we're at about 50% in person and 50% virtual through all of our programs. But our admin team and our foster team are all on campus every single day.
Oh, wonderful. So tell us, are there any volunteer opportunities at Kids in Distress, and how does it work if there are?
Under normal circumstances, Geraldine, we probably have about 500 or more volunteers throughout the organization. That's primarily with our children. Opportunities such as tutoring, mentoring, assisting our teachers in our preschool, hooking folks up with our foster families and kinship families to provide support. We have suspended those volunteer opportunities currently, primarily because, of course, with the infection rates spiking the last 30 days, our primary goal is to protect our children and protect the families we work with. But that being said, I got to give kudos to some of our very significant partners, like Our Ladies Auxiliary out in Weston, who runs a program with Kids Helping Kids. The Kids Helping Kids entity has actually donated over 1,000 backpacks. Last year, they collected over $18,000 in Publix gift cards and actually provided food boxes to our programs. And I would say that, for folks that want to volunteer, holding drives like that for basic needs, it's a volunteer opportunity that we can facilitate. Because we always need clothing, we always need food, we always need gift cards that can be provided to families to meet those basic needs. So in the absence of in-person volunteering, those resources can be met in very significant ways without a whole lot of effort. We have such a population in Broward County, and just asking your group, everybody, for $20 gift cards that we can then turn into resources for families goes such a long way.
Oh, well, those are really helpful tips. I appreciate that, Mark. And I want to thank you for joining us today. I am humbled and honored to have observed you and your team and the work that you do on a daily basis. You are a dedicated group of people. We're lucky to have you in our community and really blessed to have you as a partner in our efforts to help everybody we can in Broward County. So thank you again for being here. Mark gave us his time today. He's in a little bit of a time crunch, so we really appreciate it, Mark. So thank you so much. And thank you all for watching. Continue to follow us on Facebook, our Instagram, and YouTube at Coast to Coast Legal Aid of South Florida. Stay well.
Thank you, Geraldine.